Good morning, folks. So I've been going through the defendant's motion to suppress evidence. This is a motion that was filed by String and Buting, and it was filed when they realized that the warrant under which most of this evidence was found was basically the searches went outside of the warrant. Okay, now I started digging deeper into this, and there's just some weird shit going on here, folks. So let me break it down for you real quick. The whole purpose of a warrant, of a search warrant, is to limit police intrusion into your private home and your private property, and it limits where the police can look, what they can look for, what they can seize, yada, yada, yada. Prior to them even entering your house, they must have a warrant. The warrant must be signed by a judge. And in that warrant, they have to spell out what it is that they're going to be looking for. Now, this is basic law 101, folks. The warrant is covered under, okay, let's back it up there a little second. Okay, the warrant is spelled out by our Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution, and what this is basically the right to be protected from unlawful search and seizure. Particularly, the Fourth Amendment has requirements which limits the scope of lawful search to those areas and items for which probable cause is described in the warrant application, meaning they have to tell the judge what they're looking for and why they're looking for it. Okay? They can't just say, oh, well, I want to go into his house and look for anything that might be suspicious. It has to be spelled out in the warrant exactly what they're looking for. You know, so say you're looking for Teresa Halbach. You can't look in his sugar bowl. It has to be inside of a space where feasibly that object could fit. So, now, the Fourth Amendment is designed to safeguard the privacy and security of individuals against arbitrary invasions by governmental officials. Basically, they don't have a right to search your shit. Now, in Wisconsin, they now do, which I find the timing of that particular law being signed in very interesting. And I'd be interested to know if the language of the law allows it to be retroactive. That would be interesting. At any rate, okay, so the initial search warrant, which we've already talked about a little bit, the initial search warrant was issued on November 5th, the same day that they found Teresa Halbach's car on the Avery property. The warrant application was filed by Detective Wiegert, and it was notarized by Mr. Kratz. Now, in this warrant, they specified that what they are looking for, I've got it around here somewhere. Sorry, guys. I've got a lot of stuff that I've got to cover. In the warrant, it was specified what exactly they need to look for. Yeah, here we go. Sorry. What they were looking for was Teresa Halbach herself. There are now located and concealed certain things, and this is where they have to spell out what they're looking for specifically, right? A 1999 Toyota RAV4. Number 2, women's clothing, included but not limited to blue jeans, a white button-down shirt, and a spring jacket. Number 3, Teresa Halbach herself. Number 4, property belonging to Teresa Halbach. Number 5, forensic evidence, including but not limited to fiber evidence, blood, hair, saliva, semen, and fingerprints. And number 6 is instrumentalities capable of taking a human life, blah, 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 blah. Okay? There were only 6 things outlined in this warrant that they were allowed to look for. Now, when the defense filed the motion to suppress, they filed the motion to suppress because the general rule of thumb is one warrant, one search. That's it. This warrant was issued at approximately 3:30 p.m. on November 5th. At that time, law enforcement then proceeded to seize the Avery property for 5 days. The warrant language, however, specifies 48 hours only. Now, I know what you're going to say, but Casey, they got a warrant on the 7th. Yes, they did. Do you want to know what's spelled out in that warrant? In that warrant, they are only looking to seize Stephen Avery's computer, which only allows them to go into his house, process the computer, and bag it and get it back to the lab. That's all that they're allowed to do. But Casey, they got another warrant on November 9th. Yes, they did. But what's spelled out in that warrant does not cover most of what they discovered in the course of the 5-day search. And it sure as fuck didn't include planting evidence. On 4 subsequent warrants were filed after the November 5th one. One on the 7th, which sought the computer and some of Stephen Avery's DNA, which I find strange because Stephen Avery had already given quite a bit of DNA during his exoneration proceedings in 2003. Why the fuck would they need further DNA? He's already in the system. Number 2, the November 9th warrant was sworn out in Calumet County, and that warrant only sought the bookcase. And then the March 1st warrant sought another search of the trailer and garage. Here's the thing though, folks, is once law enforcement has gone into a scene and searched it, and they have done a thorough search and they leave, that's it. Any subsequent searches that they want to conduct, they must get another warrant to do. That is the fucking law. That's it. There's no getting around that. And if they knew that they were going to go over that 48-hour limit on that warrant, they needed to file for another fucking warrant. It was already proven by the 11-7 warrant that they were going to get another warrant for something else. Why couldn't they have filed a continuation warrant for the remainder of the search? Probably because they didn't have any probable cause. Now, yes, I have a lot of handwritten notes. Constitutional reasonableness relates not only to the grounds for a search, but also circumstances surrounding the search. The Fourth Amendment limits police conduct in the execution of the warrant. Now, back in the colonial days, our forefathers had what was called a general warrant, and it operated the way that the fucking police operated off of this warrant. You know, oh, we have court permission to search your shit, and we're going to stay here until we find something. That was done in the colonial days. Since then, more restrictions have been placed due to unlawful search and seizure. So, and in this particular motion to suppress, Strang cites a ruling from a case out of my home state, New Mexico, State versus Trujillo. Warrant is executed when a search is conducted. Legality expires upon execution. That's the letter of the law, folks. No additional search can be undertaken on the same warrant absent exigent circumstances, meaning without extenuating circumstances, you know, like say they're searching the fucking room and like their foot scrapes underneath the bed and they happen to kick the foot of a dead body that's under the bed. Without something like that, they cannot keep searching your fucking property. The November 5th warrant authorized the search of Stephen Avery's trailer, Barb Janda's trailer, and the 40-acre property of the salvage yard. Okay? The search warrant was executed at approximately 3:48 p.m. Detective Remaker and Officer Gary Steyer were the ones who initially executed the warrant. Here's what gets me, guys. When executing the warrant, Remaker kicked in Stephen Avery's trailer door. He kicked it in. Like, boom! We're here to search your property. Why would you do that, Remaker? Why would you feel the need to kick in Stephen Avery's door? So far, up to that point, he had been only too happy to cooperate with police. And even after that instance, he was more than happy to cooperate with police. So what, you were just playing big bad cop? That was like your one Miami Vice moment in your career? You just wanted to know what it felt like to kick in a door? Because that's what it looks like to me, Remaker, you slimy bastard. At that time, they didn't find really a whole hell of a lot, and so they left at 3:58 p.m. That satisfies the letter of the law on that warrant. At that point, they would have needed to get a new warrant to search the trailer again. The same two officers then entered and searched Stephen Avery's garage between 3:58 and 4:06 that same afternoon. Nothing was noted. Get this shit, guys. Nothing in that garage was noted except for some shell casings that were on the floor of the garage, but those were not seized at that time. Why? At that time, they were unaware that the majority of the Avery property was littered with shell casings. So those would have been suspect enough to seize those. Those would have been considered exigent circumstances. The fuck? That same day, at 7:30 p.m., so 4 fucking hours later, 4 hours later, Remaker, Link, Colburn, and Sergeant Tyson of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, who was acting as babysitter, entered Stephen Avery's trailer again. They left at 10:05. That's a pretty decent search there, folks. With 4 guys and a single fucking wide trailer? Oh yeah. You covered every inch of that bitch. At that time, 50 pieces of evidence were collected, including bedding, handcuffs, photographs, and swabs of possible bloodstains, hair and fiber evidence, and the vacuum with the filter and the bag. Remaker at that time stated that he is experienced in evidence collection and that he felt very confident in his abilities as an evidence collection technician, and that he believed he did as thorough and complete of a job as he could have at the time. The search was completed at 10:05. Following that, they re-entered the home the next day and conducted yet another search. And on and on and on throughout the week without an additional warrant. Why would that be, folks? If they were running an on the up and up investigation, they would have gone and gotten an additional warrant. So why didn't you feel the need to apply for another warrant? Probably because you knew the judge would tell you that you're full of shit, and they needed time to manufacture evidence to plant. Now, here's what's really interesting, guys. Fassbender was the co-leader of the investigation. And the state offered testimony by Agent Fassbender, a co-leader of the investigation. Now I'm taking this directly from the motion to suppress by Dean Strang. To justify the multiple entries of Avery's trailer and garage on the strength of just the original warrant issued on November 5th, Fassbender testified that as early as the night of November 5th, after the thorough search of Avery's trailer by 4 officers. He says, in my mind, I'm quoting Fassbender on this one, in my mind, I'm thinking that the police were not done searching Avery's trailer. They were in there for almost 3 fucking hours, folks. 4 officers were in Avery's trailer for almost 3 hours in a single wide fucking trailer, and they didn't do a thorough search. My ass. He described repeated debriefings with the officers after each search was completed, where it was decided that a subsequent entry would be undertaken to seize other items they had observed. That's not how it works. It works that you see other fucking evidence or things that you think could be evidence and you go apply for another fucking warrant. That's how it goes. That is how the 4th Amendment is fucking written. What are you thinking? He testified that his thinking was that Avery's trailer is still a part of my scene. This is an ongoing search. Fassbender, how the fuck did you get to be as far in law enforcement as you did? You can't just do whatever the fuck you want to do. You have to follow the law. That is the point. You are not above the law just because you wear a badge, dickhead. You are first and foremost accountable to the law because of that badge. Fassbender also claimed that the apparent evidentiary significance of items observed in Avery's trailer changed during the course of the week. Well, you know what you do then, folks? You apply for another fucking warrant. Why? Because that's the fucking law. Now, I don't know if this new law that says that they don't have to have a search warrant to go into your house that they've got now up in Wisconsin, I don't know if that's going to be retroactive. I still got to read that. But at the time that this happened, that was not the law. And therefore, a new trial should be based just off of that, and any and all evidence that was seized during that search needs to be suppressed and thrown the fuck out. I will do another further video on this specific bullshit, and then I'm going to do one on Kratz's response. Aren't you excited? Don't forget to go to my Kickstarter campaign, donate, share, please. Let's get a Clue TV up and running, guys. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll see you next video.